Well, Bristol City have made mid-table their home in the Championship, broadly speaking, since coming up in 2015. They're hoping to do a little bit better than that this season under Liam Manning. They're assembling what they hope will be an exciting young squad, full of energy, full of pressing, and they're hoping to disrupt a few of the big hitters in the Championship. Have they got it what it takes? Well, that's what we're about to discuss on this Summer Deep Dive. Yes, welcome along to the latest Summer Deep Dive here on EFL Debate, one of 72 we're doing across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. The full set uploaded already to League Two, for League Two to Spotify and to YouTube. So get yourself subscribed. A few for League One's up there as well. But for now, we're focusing on the Championship and we're focusing on Bristol City. So who better to be joined than Ani Harish, YouTuber and a Bristol City fan. Ani, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. What's the route for Bristol City to go from being a mid-table side to a top six contender?
Score more goals, basically. I think we statistically, in terms of goals conceded, had the fourth best defence in the Championship, which is a very good achievement considering the money or the kind of lack of money we've spent on that back line and where we've picked up our defenders from. So that's mighty impressive. So yeah, just adding goals to that kind of weak front line that's not really up to it for top six Championship standards. It's a decent Championship front line, but it needs a little bit more kind of an X factor about it, a bit more dynamism. It's too predictable, it seems. So that's what we're looking to address in the transfer market. Already have started that with one addition. And it looks like we've targeted kind of foreign markets. One addition being from Austria, who's a French lad, and then being linked with players from the Croatian leagues and from Germany and France as well. It's in Spain. It's really, and Italy. It's really quite promising, and it's not just the same names.
Does it excite you that, Ani, that the club is looking for value in different parts of the world that other clubs might not necessarily have their eye on?
I think in the Championship nowadays, it's harder to do that because a lot of clubs are going, we can find value outside of the EFL or in the national leagues and whatnot. So a lot of clubs are looking at kind of European leagues as well as as well as the big footballing powerhouses like your Brazils and Argentinas and America and whatnot. So I think it's harder to find that these days. So it's good that we're finally doing that because we haven't done that for a while since Lee Johnson and spending 8 million on like Hanno Masengo, signing Pedro Pereira on loan, and Nicholas Eliasson, for example. So we haven't done that in a while.
I like Nicholas Eliasson, to be fair. He was a good left-footed winger, wasn't he? Put some good balls in.
Good player. But yeah, we haven't done that in a while, so it's good that we've started to do that again. Kind of moved away from recent years where we've signed. Don't get me wrong, players who are decent at Championship level, but again, it's not quite what we need if we want to make that step up. So to answer your original question, score more goals.
There we go. Structurally, do you feel like the club's making some progress off the pitch, Ani?
I think it's made a hell of a lot of progress, to be honest, over the past kind of 4 years since about lockdown. Yeah, since about lockdown, it's made a lot of progress. We've gone through a period of transition where FFP troubles are kind of looming over us, and didn't really know if we were going to get a points deduction or not, whether we we're going to have to sell our best players for money and then not being able to reinvest it, so we're going to end up with a weaker squad and stuff like that. But generally, we've navigated it really well. I think apart from 2 seasons where we finished kind of really in the bottom 6 and kind of bottom 8, we've kind of been 14th and then 11th last year with a squad, again, as mentioned, not a lot of money has gone into it compared to some other Championship clubs who are we finished above. So it's a really decent achievement, actually, what we've done with this group of players and what kind of Nigel Pearson had to go through. In terms of your structure thing, I suppose some people start to question it, me included, when Pearson was sacked and kind of the timing of it, and what is the thought process behind this decision, like who is actually making this decision. But I think we can now see like a clear plan that's been instilled with Manning, and kind of a clear style of play, whilst we wasn't quite seeing that with Pearson. So we've got that trust back, that it's naturally built up again. So yeah, I'm quite content with how things are going off the pitch. And well, the news that came out about half an hour ago, that I'm not going to pretend to be a financial expert or anything, but Steve Lansdown has once again done a good thing for Bristol City. So look, despite him not having probably the success he'd like to have, he's still investing money, and he knows he's going to make a loss, but he's still doing it.
I've always felt very much, Ani, that Steve Lansdown is somebody who really cares about Bristol City. So that's great that he still feels that commitment and is able to put some money in. Liam Manning, Ani, what do you make of his work so far? Solid, if unspectacular?
It's been tough for Manning. It's been quite tough for us at times to watch his side. It's been a bit of a take 2 steps back to take 3 forward. Basically, we've had that short-term pain for long-term gain is what we've kind of adopted. Let me throw more cliches into there. Why not? But yeah, it didn't look great at the beginning, but I don't think anyone seriously were questioning his methods, because we knew he had a squad that was not built to play his style of football, and it was built for a Nigel Pearson side, which is, and yeah, Pearson has a kind of same morals as Manning, work hard and be good human beings and stuff like that. But Manning takes us to that next level on the tactical level.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure some of these players had it in them to quite do that. So it's been a bit of a culture shift, and that's going to take time. And hopefully this summer and pre-season is when we really start to judge Manning. We showed some good signs towards the back end of last season. I think it was 8 games unbeaten, and then we lost 4-0 away at Stoke on the final day, but anomalous result. I'm not counting that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we showed some good signs. Some players who I thought were kind of drifting away in their Bristol City careers were kind of reintroduced, like Hayden Roberts, for example, who I thought would be one of those where we sign and we take a punt on him on a free transfer, but it doesn't really work out. He moved into a left centre back role and has now been excellent and is crucial now for next season. Yeah. So yeah, it's been good to see some development of those sort of players. And as I mentioned, this season is crucial for Manning, because the reason Nigel Pearson was sacked was because we wanted progress and we wanted to be a side that was capable of pushing for the top 6 in a sustainable way. And well, Manning is going to be based off that. It's similar to, I wouldn't compare it like for like, but kind of what Hull did with Liam Rosenior to a certain extent, where they sacked the manager who was quite well liked, not doing terribly, but they did it with the view that they want to get even better, and that's what we've done in essence, but just 6 months earlier. So I think the only way Manning really has full backing is if we get a side early in the season. We've got a decent start as well in the fixtures on paper, get a good start and look like we've got a sustainable push for the top 6, and anything apart from that, and I think he's kind of not going to get full backing.
Yeah, I can tell, Ani, that Liam Manning is a very intelligent guy, and I can see that he's a very good strategist, and especially in terms of how he sets his teams up without the ball. There's a lot of detail there, so I think that's a massive strength for him as a head coach. What I would wonder is, I'm not sure who his assistants actually are or first team coaches, but I would actually think you'd want to pair Manning with an assistant or first team coach who's very charismatic and can actually do a bit more of a team talk, if you like, or be a bit more of a motivator. I'm sure Liam Manning will say he motivates in his own way, and I do see how a sort of a calming environment can help as well. But I'm also wondering if there's someone on the coaching staff who you feel can sort of be deliver the passion a little bit more than maybe Panning does, and that's not a criticism of him. We're just, we all operate differently.
Well, he has Chris Hogg, who he's worked with. I know he worked with him at Oxford. I'm not sure about MK Dons, but he's been there for the longest time. And both Manning and Chris Hogg have both come out and said that they know each other inside out. So, look, I don't know Hogg or Manning personally, so I don't know if
Sure.
if they're different behind the scenes than they are, what they are in front of the camera. So it could very well be, you're right, that Chris Hogg could be this kind of real motivator in the dressing room that's getting everyone amped up and also providing that kind of tactical level that Manning appreciates. But I couldn't really answer that question. Sorry.
It's hard to say from an observational point of view, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other than like who's doing what on the touchline.
I'd agree. It would be a kind of good balance to have that kind of calming effect, but also when at times you maybe under pressure a little bit, you'd have that kind of motivator, and that it'd be a good balance to have. And that's exactly what I'm hoping
I think if there's in League Two, there's a club, Harrogate Town, who have a manager called Simon Weaver, who's I think a bit more of a calming presence, and then he has an assistant called Paul Thirlwell, who's very passionate on the sideline. So sometimes that mixture goes well. So I'd be really curious to hear actually from Bristol City fans watching this if you've got a stance on Chris Hogg and what sort of influence he has. Talk to me about the influence then of Max O'Leary and his form last season, and he starting all 46 league games.
He's really good, and for him to be probably, I think he was probably the only constant in that team that played all 46 games and was part of a side. Again, I think it might have been joint third or joint fourth best defensive record in the league, whatever it is. Incredibly impressive, and to be honest, saved us in some big games like Sunderland away towards the back end of the season. We drew 0-0, but it was absolutely outstanding. Sunderland at home, in fact, where we won 1-0. In fact, lots of games where it was tight 1-0. We didn't win a lot of games where we blew the opposition away. It was generally 1-0, 2-1s. So he really was crucial to this side. Is still crucial to the side. And going into next season, I'm hoping he just gets better. At the start of the season, it was probably like, is his saving up to it? Is his ability to kind of, it was not so much play out the back at that point last season, but now it is. It's his onus to kind of start attacks, basically. So can he do that? And he's improved since Manning's come in. I remember the first home game Manning had, his distribution was terrible because he was constantly asked to play out from the back, and he was so uncomfortable. And he really botched up, and in fact, Middlesbrough on that day scored a goal from one of his pretty terrible distribution. But towards the back end of it got better and better, and that's what you can.
Yeah, well, sorry, Annie. I think you've made a really interesting point there, because, and I think you've got to probably give Liam Manning a bit of credit for that, because it's very difficult, I think, to be able to improve a player's weakness in season. I think in a pre-season where you've got a bit more time to implement the ideas, it's easier. But when the sort of the pressure's on, it's in season, you've got to try and get to results as a new manager. Is actually sometimes the temptation can be to say, actually, you know what, let's put that to the back burner, just boot it long or whatever. But actually, he's been able to improve Max O'Leary in season, which I think that's a sign of a good coach.
Yeah, and towards the back end of it, looked really comfortable, and we made some really promising attacks, built some really promising attacks from Max, and not only him, Rob Dickey, Zach Viner looked really comfortable on the ball. Joe Williams was another person who his game shot up since Manning's come in. He's occupied a little bit more of a deeper role, and he's been magnificent and a new contract. But yeah, Max has been superb, and he's arguably first name on the team sheet now, along with the fully fit Zach Viner and a fully fit.
He's literally first name on the team sheet if you're writing it in order.
Name on the team sheet.
So formations then, Annie, are we looking at a combination? I think Liam Manning's, I wouldn't say he's wedded to any one formation. So are we looking at a combination between 4-2-3-1 and 3-4-2-1?
Well, we ended the season with a back three with who am I thinking? Roberts
on the left, right?
Hayden Roberts on the left and Rob Dickey and I think Zach Viner was how we
Mhm.
ended the season, I believe.
Right.
I can't fully remember; it's a long time ago, and kind of that allowed our wing backs and Campering and Ross McCrory in particular to be able to get forward a lot more and not really worry about the defensive side as much, and that helped their games because I'd say that McCrory on the right hand side is much better at pushing himself forward, and I think he'll probably be the number one choice ahead of George Tanner next season. Honestly, I think a lot depends on what we do for the rest of the transfer window in the forward positions, because if we do sign a number 10 that's whether that's Scott Twine or anyone else, we might go back to a 4-2-3-1 or a kind of a 4-3-3 with one in or two number 10s, which we have done before.
2-8 sort of thing.
Yeah, where Mametti and Twine have played as two number 10s before, so we might do that. But I'd say at this point he'd probably start the season with a back three, but he won't. I don't think there will be again a bit more flip flop. I think to us as the season builds on because he's not, as you said, fully wedded to one particular formation, and if he sees fit, he'll change mid game. Whether that's 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 75 minutes, 80 minutes, he will change it. He's not done. He's done it before. He'll do it again. So I think my gut feeling probably says we'll start the season with a back three, but not fully sure by come Hull, and if we hopefully have had the signings by then, first game of the season, we would particularly know what formation we're going to play. We could be kind of fluid. It could be a lot of different things. Again, it's kind of the uncertainty, isn't it? Because we don't know what Manning's doing in pre-season.
I'm curious that you've currently got four centre forwards at the moment. If we include Seb Bahama-Holden, who had a good loan spell at Newport,
he's joined Dundee on loan, so he's not.
He's joined Dundee, right?
Okay. So he's not part of the equation.
Okay, right. So you got three. So Nicky Wells, Tommy Conway, and Mayulu. So that's going to be an interesting situation, I guess. Do you think that if Mayulu is going to be as good as hoped, and if Conway can continue his development, then you're maybe not going to rely on Nicky Wells as much?
Well, Tommy Conway is more than likely going to be sold this summer because his contract is up next summer. So, and he has reportedly, don't know, not accepted a new deal. So it's more than likely he'll be gone this summer for a decent fee, we'd hope. So that leaves us with Mayulu and Naki Wells, and you don't want to go into a championship season with kind of veteran striker coming into the twilight of his careers and an unknown quantity who's not been in this division before. You want a bit more of a you want a bit more stability in that department when it's an important position like centre forward as well. So, I'd anticipate probably two more strikers join by the end of the window.
If you bring in another two strikers, I think that there's a likelihood that you'd want to play two up top because otherwise you've got too many players that just aren't getting game time.
I'm not sure about Naki Wells' involvement. I'm going to be particularly honest. And also, I've heard Mayulu can play kind of either side, so that's also an option, similar to Harry Cornick in a way.
Forward, okay.
Yeah, similar to Cornick in a way. So it wouldn't be. Yeah, I don't think it'd be too much of an ask to get two more centre forward. Obviously, the market is going to be ridiculously difficult to get two centre forwards, especially with what will probably be our budget. So we'll see. We'll probably end up with one, more than likely, but two would be the preferred number.
Why, Annie? Why do you think it's so likely that Tommy Conway is going to be sold?
Well, I think it's just a business decision at the end of the day because we don't want to lose him, especially the person of Tommy Conway's kind of credentials, his rise over the past two seasons. It's been really good, but also there have been kind of some factors where you're going, can he really be a top end to low end Premier League striker, top end Championship, low end Premier League? Can he really be that? his goal record and with compared to his appearances, his ratio might look impressive, but there are a lot of penalties in that. His XG isn't that good, and on the eye, he doesn't really make those runs where you're looking for when you've got when you've got the ball in those kind of final third areas. It doesn't really make those runs, and you're
Right.
kind of frustrated by that.
Okay.
He's not one of those strikers where he'll be in the right position at the right time. It feels like, and obviously I wanted to stay because I think there's a hell of a lot of potential to tap into. Like
Mm.
Manning, with his ability to coach young players, his reputation, could extract a lot more out of Conway, given a free season and a full season in the championship. So it's frustrating, but it's just a business decision, isn't it? And after, especially his stock rising even more over the summer after being called up to the Scotland squad and those 2 goals against West Ham in the cup. So it might be a regrettable but understandable decision to sell him this summer, and I wouldn't again be too disappointed because I do think we can kind of replace him. That's no disrespect to Tommy, who I think is a brilliant striker and has got, as I said, a lot of potential that one club will tap into. I do expect that he'll probably be like a second choice if he does leave. He'll probably be like a second choice to top end championship club like a Burnley or a Luton, for example, like a Leeds, someone like of that ilk.
Sure.
He'll kind of slowly
Of
get
that
into
elk.
of that ilk. He'll probably kind of get into their side in the future. But yeah, it's just a business decision, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting point. How much do you reckon you'll be able to get for him?
Again, that depends on whether he's sold to the Premier League or whether he's sold to the Championship. Because if he's sold to the Championship, hardly, I'd say about 3 million. But if he's sold to the Premier League, then we can demand a little bit more, 4.5 million. But yeah, that kind of depends because he is in that bracket of maybe someone takes a punt on him in the Premier League, but more than likely he's going to end up kind of in the top 6 in the Championship. Is where I hedge my bets on. So somewhere in that region I just mentioned.
Okay, we'll see. I guess there was a stage where you'd hoped to have got a bit more from him, but seeing as he's in the last year of his contract, that obviously decreases the value. So, right back spot then. Well, if it's a back 3, I suppose we're looking at Zach Viner, Rob Dickey, and Hayden Roberts. Are we expecting those 3 to sort of start as your defensive trio and really give them that opportunity to hopefully start regularly next season as a trio?
Well, it's a bit of a headache because we've got Rob Atkinson, we've got Cal Naismith, who are 2 really good Championship players, and they want to play. So that's again, it's. I would say with the form they showed over the past few games, over the past few weeks of the season, it would probably be those 3 you mentioned: Roberts, Viner, and Dickey. But we have got good options at centre back, and that's obviously very positive. And we've got kind of flexibility there, where someone like a Campring or a George Tanner can tuck in as well, and they're more than capable of playing centre back in a back 3. So yeah, at the moment I would say Roberts, Dickey, Viner, but that again that could very much change depending on a lot of things, whether like Naismith and Atkinson's a fit by the end of the season, and especially with Atkinson and Naismith, they're very good at bringing the ball out. We saw that with Naismith at Luton; they're very comfortable on the ball. And Rob Atkinson in his time here he doesn't look like your normal centre back who's very comfortable on the ball because he's kind of your big man and he's head it, kick it kind of defender, but he's really comfortable on the ball and his passing range is really impressive as well. So maybe him alongside a kind of a Rob Dickey, perhaps a bit more of a traditional centre back in sense, could be a good balance. But again, that would mean leaving out Zach Viner, who's probably been our most consistent player over the last 2 years. So it's very hard. It's a good headache to have, basically. So yeah, back 3, back 4, whatever it is. At the moment, I'd say, yeah, Robert Sticky Viner.
Viner's been the most consistent player for Bristol City over the last 2 years. You've said there, Annie. Why do you think that is? What's made him be that consistent? What is it about him that's yeah?
Well, he's been constant in our team, despite whatever's happened. He's made very, very few mistakes, and generally looks like the type of guy where if the chips are down, teammates will look around to him, not anyone else on the pitch. They'll look around to him and go,
Mm-hmm.
"Skipper, what do we do? Tell us, where do we need to be?" And he always says the right thing and looks like a leader on the pitch. And he's got a Kenyan call up recently, so
Oh, right,
massively
nice.
massively deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And just generally, just looks like a completely different player from the player we saw 3-4 seasons ago, where he was mistake prone, injury prone, wasn't getting a game, didn't fit into a back three, was played in central midfield under Dean Holden, and because he scored one scruffy goal against, I can't remember, he was played there for a majority, and he got caught out. We always knew his centre back was his best position, but it was just about how do we get the best out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I think the answer has been giving him game time and making sure he's just kind of cared for, really, because there was a lot of chopping and changing. And since him being a constant, he's just benefited off that environment. And that's absolutely massive for us, because if you can have kind of one place just kind of locked into your team, it just makes it a lot more easy to figure out. So, yeah, his leadership skills, his ability on the ball is really impressive. And you'd think, how does a centre back that's kind of tall and not really, doesn't, again, similar to Atkinson, doesn't really look like a centre back that's comfortable on the ball, but it's really comfortable on the ball. Looks like just a really top championship centre back, and can easily play, I'd say, top end championship to kind of lower end Premier League. You'd fit right in.
Why? Okay. Well, hopefully you can have another great season. You mentioned earlier, Annie, that Rob Dickey is a bit more of a conventional centre back, and I'm curious. I actually wonder if it suits him more playing in the middle of a back three, because his one weakness that I've always felt has been he's a bit vulnerable on the turn, if you like. Whereas I think if he's got the protection of two centre halves either side of him, then I imagine that he's not really going to get into those 1v1 duels so much, and he's able to focus on what he does best.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We didn't really see, that was a bit of a concern when we initially signed him, and I thought, if we play him in a back four with two centre backs, and Zach Viner isn't particularly he's not particularly the quickest, but he's the quickest in what we got, so he's normally the one making the recovery challenges. And if he gets caught out, Viner, I think he's going to be exposed. But I haven't really seen that from Dickey, whatever formation we play. And I think the answer to that is because he's always been in the right position at the right time. He's been really, again, major positive, and he got player of the season, rightfully. Absolutely outstanding, scored some crucial goals. And yeah, playing him in the middle of a back three probably is his kind of best position. And when I said traditional centre back, doesn't mean he can't play out from the back with the ball. In that Mark Warburton team with QPR, he was, and when they were a little bit more possession orientated. I remember seeing a lot of games because that was lockdown, and I kept seeing Rob Dickey kind of getting out from the back, scoring goals from outside the box, and I was going, a centre back or a centre attacking midfielder. So I've got no doubts that he's really good on the ball. I haven't really seen that to a certain same degree at City, but maybe because we've kind of got other players who can kind of carry the burden as well to a certain degree. So yeah, I've got no concerns at all with Rob Dickey, because he's not shown anything I need to worry about at the moment. So yeah, maybe playing him in the middle of the back three is probably the best way to go about it, especially considering we have a lot of options at centre back. But at the moment, just keep it how it is, and don't fix something that's not broke. There's another cliche for you.
There you go. So right wing back. Talk to me about Ross McCrory then, Annie, and his role, especially driving forward.
Yeah, much better going forward than he is. I'd say kind of that's a bit unfair. He's better going forward than he is going back. I think that's fair. And we've got kind of the opposite a little bit in George Tanner, who's much better defensively. And I've seen a lot of fans going, he's probably one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league. Maybe not quite one of the best, but he's definitely very much competent. And yeah, we've got that kind of two different kind of ends of the spectrum. Whether Manning wants to opt for maybe kind of two fullbacks and one stays and the other one bombs for forward, or and whether he wants to kind of strike a balance a little bit, and that would possibly be with a back four. If he wants to do that, then he'd probably allow Campering to bomb on forward because that's his natural game as well. Rory is a very good player. He's again called up for Scotland, similar to Tommy Conway. Had that horrible injury at the start of the season, which kept him out till December after signing from Aberdeen for £2.5 million, something like that. Very rare injury as well. Some sort of bone condition. Not overly sure. No, not overly sure what it is. But since then, his first game starting for City was actually that 1-0 win over West Ham, where he's just chucked straight into the deep end, and you're going, "What are you doing?" He's just come back from an 8-month injury, and you've chucked him straight in against some of the best players in the Premier League, and handled himself very well, and is since then been really impressive for considering the fact that he's come back from injury. We're not seeing 100% of Ross McCrory yet because of that injury. So hopefully pre-season, bit of time to recover, reset, buying into Manning's kind of systems and methods. Hopefully that allows him to, push on next season because there's a very good player in there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Come across Joseph James at all? Looks like he's a right back. So I'm wondering if you've got a steer on his development and whether he could come into the squad next season or more likely to go out on loan.
Well, Joseph James is a funny one because he started Nigel Pearson's last game away at Cardiff in the seven-side derby, purely because we had absolutely no options at right back, and we had to play a right winger in Mark Sykes at left back that day as well. So chucked straight into the deep end, handled himself fairly well. There's a player in there for sure, but haven't seen enough from him in the first team. He clearly must have had something about him if he was getting played into the first team ahead of the likes of your Jamie Knight-Labelles, for example, who's now joined Crew on loan. So he must have had something about him at that point, and that kind of just magically disappeared. So I'm sure there's a good player in there because at the moment, with our two options at right back, I'm not sure if he can play on the other side or not, but with our two options at right back, I think probably a loan move, probably the right option for him in his career right now. But if he does well at a League Two level, for example, or a League One level, even if he's lucky enough to get a move to League One, then there's no doubt he can be a first team regular for Bristol City in the future. So yeah, I'm quite excited for our next batch of youngsters. That includes him and a couple of players we've sent out on loan. And
talk to me about the ones you're most excited about then, Annie.
Well, Seb Palmer-Holden is massively exciting. You've mentioned him. Did really well at Newport in his first season in professional football, and then getting moved to Dundee, who I think are in the first division in Scotland, and will be coming up against some of the best players up there. Massive experience for him. So that he's someone I'm very excited about. Another youngster, in that forward line, and from kind of a business standpoint, if he's scoring loads of goals for City, then strikers come at a premium, especially English homegrown ones. So yeah, that's massively exciting, and hopefully he has a really good spell up there in Scotland, and can come back to kind of into the first team mold, perhaps if there's a little bit more change next summer, and really because I do really want to see him succeed at Bristol City, and hopefully he's there for a couple of years' time and he's completely ready to be in the first team.
Yeah, let's hope so. Cameron Pring, left back, then. Solid option, then. I mean, I guess if we're talking wing backs, would you ideally want someone who can get up and down a bit more, or are you happy with him as a wing back as well as a left back?
Yeah, I'm not too bothered in a nice way by what Cam Pring does, because I know he's not going to make some sort of horrible mistake. He's not a liability at all. He's very solid in what he does, and he showed a couple of seasons ago, no, last season, where not last season, the season before that, where he was really kind of showing his ability going forward, and his attacking output was really important. That's just dipped a little bit, and it's maybe because he hasn't been able to get into the box as much, but that attacking output of the game has not been quite up there. It's been really good. There's a reason no one has really said, "Oh, Cam Pring needs to be dropped." And we've had options. We've had options there. Hayden Roberts last season was an option. So
yeah,
he's been really, really impressive, Cam Pring. And considering again, he was also one of those players, similar to Zach Varner, where you looked at him going, "Does he really have a career? Does he really have a career? Is he kind of destined for kind of League One and whatnot?" No, just done really well, Cam Pring. No concerns about him at all. And again, he's I don't know how old he is. He 26? 26, Cam. So yeah, so he's still got a career ahead of him. And if he can have a really impressive championship season, left back's a bit of a problem for England at the moment. If he can have a really impressive season in the championship and gets himself a move to the Premier League and does well there, then there's no reason why he can't do well in his career, because he has potential for sure.
Yeah. So central midfield then, Annie. You've got Max Bird coming in this summer. You've got Taylor Gardner-Hickman, who came in January, I think. But you've also brought in Adam Murphy from the League of Ireland. So I'm wondering if those two additions in midfield, along with Gardner-Hickman, can they bring some creativity and some dynamism?
As well as Jason Knight and Joe Williams.
Well, yeah, I had. Yeah. I mean, I had Jason Knight pegged as a number 10, but I suppose he could play deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say Knighty's best position is that number 8. I think we were playing him in that number 10 for a bit of a while and weren't really getting the best out of him. So him back there.
Sorry, you've also got. Did you say Joe Williams has signed a new contract as well?
Yeah, Joe Williams has signed a new contract.
Okay.
So. Yeah, them two are massively important because they're first names on the team sheet if we play a midfield kind of 3 with 2 8s and a 6. So yeah, 90's massively important. Williams is massively important. Any Bristol City fan watching this will know. Don't need to explain just how good they are and how important they are to this side. Max Bird is someone I have loved and rated for the longest time. Since he kind of first emerged into that Derby side, I was going, bloody hell, left-footed, kind of number 6, can play number 8. Passing range is really good. Composure is really good. He's destined, to play in the Premier League. And then for him to sign for us whilst being in League One, massively impressed by him and his time in the Championship. By that, that kind of transfer to that City side shouldn't be too much of an ask. I couldn't tell you anything about Adam Murphy. He did sign in January. He does look quite promising. He does look like one of the best kind of prospects Ireland have produced in recent years. League of Ireland have produced in recent years. And there's a lot of hype about him over there. So hopefully he's a good prospect, but I don't know if he's going to be involved in the first team or not regularly. I suspect he'll probably get minutes, kind of off the bench, perhaps if he's on the bench. But he's definitely one of kind of those unknown commodities that we have within our rankings as well.
Yeah, I think he's
that's similar with a lot of. Sorry, go on.
No, well, I think he's billed as a physical box-to-box midfielder. So again, pretty similar, I guess, to some of the profiles of players you've got. I think Max Bird is probably the one who offers something different. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Annie, but I would say somebody like Max Bird, who conducts the tempo so well and is good on either foot, I would say that's something different to anything you've had in midfield for quite a long time, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had. Can I compare them? I mean, we had it kind of with your description, kind of a Matty James, whereas passing range was quite good, but Matty
Yeah.
James was not as uh, not as physical, maybe not as quick as a Max Bird, maybe not as
Yeah,
kind of
mobile. Yeah.
mobility exactly,
Yeah.
not as dynamic as a Max
Mhm.
Bird could possibly be. So yeah, good to have him there, and it gives that as a balance. Balance is massive in the
Mm.
championship. So have him with a Williams, with a Knight in midfield, and
Mm.
that is a seriously good championship midfield for the money we've spent in recent years. So
Mm.
it's a good midfield option. It's good midfield options we do have at the moment.
Mm.
So Bird, Williams, Knight, and then as you mentioned, the likes of Gardner Hickman, uh, Adam Murphy, in there as well, who can fit in. Maybe even a Ross McCrory if we're really desperate, who can kind of played there at Aberdeen in his career. So we do have options again, and I'm really not concerned about that area of the pitch. We really have some good depth and some good
Mm.
quality in there now, which is good
Yeah.
because if we try to sign Max Bird this summer and apart instead of last January, we would have
Mhm.
really struggled to get him over the
Yeah.
line because of his kind of contract situation. So it's good that we've got him over the line in January and then kind of
Yeah.
waited and let him
No,
through.
I like the club's foresight and its long-term planning, and sometimes it's easier to do that to an extent when you're in the table. But yeah, I like the club's investing in long-term potential players that can really grow with the club. But I wanted to come to you on the attack. I suppose the front four it might be, or possibly a front three. And I'm just wondering, there's this balancing act that Bristol City have got to strike, where you want high energy players who are really going to go and press the opposition, because that could be a massive strength for you this evening. You also want players who can make a difference in that final third as well. What do you think that balancing act is going to look like for Bristol City?
I think, well, it's a tough question because, as you said, we might play a kind of three up top with a striker and
Mhm.
maybe two number 10s or two
Yeah,
outright.
so when you said two number 10s before, I thought you meant as part of the midfield, but actually you mean
No,
two number 10s behind the striker. I'm with you now. Yeah, okay.
yeah, two number 10s behind the striker, two number 10s or two out and out wingers with kind of
Mhm.
them striking their own balance. Um, at the start of the season, actually, there's a lot of talk from a lot of kind of content creators like yourself. They're saying, we've got Sykes on the right hand side and we've got Sam Bell
Mhm.
on the left hand side, and they started the season really well with who would have been at that point. It would have been Naki Wells at that point, and well, you've got the ability of Sykes and his dribbling ability and his ability to take players on. Then you've also got that pace of Sam Bell, and that really worked at the start of the season, and then it was kind of disrupted a little bit with
Yeah.
injuries and whatnot. And we've never really got to that same stage again. January after January. So I think that dribbling ability of someone like a Sykes, or on the other side with someone like a Mehmeti,
Mm.
mixed with now we've got the pace of what looks like a pacey Mayulu,
Miulu,
um,
yeah.
yeah, and then again a couple more, three more I think, or through the door in that forward department is what Brian Tinian said. Um, so that kind of looks like we're trying to find a balance, but we just haven't got enough players at the moment to kind
Mhm.
of make a foregone conclusion over what could possibly be our options. We still don't know the striker situation, so kind of
Mhm.
the balance on that. But if that balance is fine, but if the central striker is kind of disrupting
Mhm.
and not complementing the two players on either side of them, it's a bit of a problem as well. So I think that's the area where we've got a lot of uncertainty at the moment. But yeah, I think Manning wants that balance. As I said, dribbly combined with the pace or dynamism and directness of someone would be ideal. And I think that would possibly be what he wants come the start of the season as well. And if I'm thinking about from a Manning again, from Manning tactical point of view, does he want someone to kind of from either side to kind of help in and help with the build up of play, and then he'll have two kind of forward players kind of doing their stuff in the forward region, or does he just want three just there and kind of delivering the goods? So there's a lot of uncertainty, I'd say, in the forward region.
Anis Bermetti, Ani, do you think he can have a big season next year?
We said that about Anis last season, where we were going, okay, he's had a first 6 months of the championship in a not in a side that's not complete underdogs like Wycombe were in the championship, and hopefully he'll kind of get up to speed. So we kind of gave him the first 6 months where just building stuff in. Last season was where we thought, okay, show us what you have, because you were signed as the kind of maverick in this side, that kind of player who was dynamic and kind of the X factor basically in this Bristol City team. Can you deliver the goods? He wasn't consistent enough. End of the season with 4 goals and an assist, 21 starts as well, so had opportunities. Used a lot as a substitute player, as an impact player. Under Nigel Pearson, didn't really work out. I don't think he was kind of his sort of player. And Manning has previously, I think he might have said this or kind of alluded to it, where he's had to kind of hold hands with Mehmeti basically throughout the game and like kind of instruct him where to be at all points.
Right.
And I get it, Anis is only 23, but you don't particularly want a player who's not really getting to grips with a division and not completely understanding his role. So I think it's very important Anis gets games, and I think a lot of fans have been crying out for that, because you don't just chuck someone in, it doesn't work out for 2 games, and then you go, okay, you're out. That doesn't help them, or doesn't help his Delta, doesn't help their rhythm.
I guess, Ani, the challenge you have is that if you're going to play 3-4-2-1, you probably need the 2 number 10s, or even 4-3-2-1. You need your 2 number 10s to be more diligent. If you play 4-2-3-1, you can maybe get away with a number 10 that roams around a lot and does go and press, but isn't necessarily someone that's going to be super disciplined. But I think the way Liam Manning operates, he's so detail driven that I'm not sure he's necessarily going to like somebody that's going to just go and be and someone that's not really going to get the nuances of what he wants. Plus, has Mehmeti yet shown the quality to kind of justify that sort of free reign? So I guess that's the dilemma there.
I'd agree.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So in terms of expectations for Bristol City then, Ani, is it progress on last season's 11th place finish?
Yes, as I mentioned at the start of the season, the expectations this season is a tough one, because the reason, I don't want to keep dwelling on this, the reason Pearson was sacked was because we wanted to be a top 6 side, or kind of within that realm, basically. Work towards it, yeah. Obviously, we're not going to just get a complete exponential growth now, and we're just not going to start suddenly becoming really good and becoming a top 6 side. It's not going to work like that. But it's about showing signs of a side that looks vaguely, or no, not vaguely, looks like a side that's very much competitive in the top 6 is probably my expectation. And considering we finish 11th next season, if we notch a couple of places higher, add a few more goals, I've no reason why we can't take on, why we're not in the kind of maybe in the lower end of a bracket of like a Middlesbrough or Coventry, where they're probably kind of definite kind of dark horses or contenders for the top 6. I don't really see why we're not in that kind of lower end of the bracket. I'm not saying we're in with them, because they've probably got better squads than us, but I wouldn't put us too far off being competitive of a Middlesbrough or Coventry. So it's a tough one, but I'd say we're kind of well established at the moment. Got some continuity,
Continuity.
continuity, stability, and expectations. Probably just once again progress, but this time progress with kind of a little bit of a idea of that we can be competitive for the top six, basically.
Yeah, hopefully you can challenge. Annie, what's the biggest reason to believe that Bristol City will meet their expectations this season?
Oh Christ! I couldn't possibly sit here and say anything positive about my football club. That'd be too much of an ask. What? It's a good question. We've made progress over the last few years in terms of league positions, and I think it's been three positions each year.
Yeah.
So 14th to 11th last year, and then before that it was 17th.
Yeah.
So we have made progress. How much more is how? What is the threshold? Is the question, I suppose. We look like we're finally kind of, as I said earlier, exploring different markets in the transfer window, which is important, and we look like a club that's more than willing to be flexible and adaptable.
Sure.
So combine that with the fact that I think in the building at the moment we do have some good players, more than capable of being on their day. Very important on that day being top end championship players littered throughout our squad. We have very much got a team that's capable of pushing. As I said, combined with a few additions in key areas throughout the squad. That's why you should believe that we're getting into the top six and winning the playoffs as well. But yeah, I think from Bristol City fan perspective, you're looking at it going, right, last season you showed on your day that you can be a really good championship side and one that's capable of, really pushing for some of the big boys in the championship. I remember Southampton at home in the league, the West Ham games, obviously very important, the Nottingham Forest games as well. If you forget that, Leicester, we beat Ashton Gate. So we've had our days last season. It's just about building some consistency, not losing to sides that you shouldn't be losing to. No disrespect to, we lost to some horrendous sides last season in the bottom six, and you're going, how have we done that? So it's just about building some consistency, and I'll say this every year, just consistency is our key, because we've been inconsistent for about what feels like a century. So it's again, just build consistency, and we can definitely be a good side.
Let's hope so. Biggest reason for doubt?
Biggest reason for doubt? Well, because of the fact that we are dipping into the new market and foreign markets, that also means that these players might be complete busts and they're not ready for the championship and not ready for England in particular. They don't adapt and they don't like it here or something, and they just doesn't work. So that could be a reason. But you'd hope that a championship football club would go through that process of are they good enough, but more importantly, are they ready to make this move to England and whatnot? And they'll go through that process kind of rigorously and really, really analyze this player. So hopefully that's not a problem. But if that is a problem, that will be a massive problem, because then we don't really have players who are ready for any players who are ready for the kind of championship in our forward line, which is massively, apart from a couple. That's harsh on Sykes and Mameti probably. But yeah, that hopefully that doesn't happen. There'll always be a couple of duds. There always is when you recruit from the foreign market.
Sure.
That not just us, other clubs have shown it in the championship as well. So hopefully that's not a problem. And hopefully I'm not sitting here in 12 months' time going, oh, why did we sign that player? That he's hopelessly bad. But yeah, that's hopefully not a problem. But if it is what it is, I suppose, because you can't particularly call someone's kind of change in mood or whatever when they move here. So hopefully that's not a problem.
Yeah, let's hope not. Too early for a prediction, I think, because a lot can change between now and the end of and now and the start of the season. But give me a number between 1 and 10 to denote your level of optimism that your ambitions are going to be realised.
Oh, I don't want to say it. Uh, Probably a 7. Sorry, probably a 7. In terms of optimism, I think we can make that step up, and I think we probably will. I think that's kind of our natural progression over the past few years. How much more progression, and that, as I said previously, mentioned that threshold. How much more can we reach is the massive question. But at the moment, probably a 7. Get a few more signings through the door, and that'll probably become a 10 but if we win our opening game as well. At the moment, probably a 7. Just kind of progress, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all you can ask for. Ani, thanks so much for your insight. I really appreciate it. I advise everyone to go and follow Ani A.H. Robbins Talk on YouTube for excellent content on Bristol City. You can subscribe as well to EFL Debate, also on YouTube and on Spotify. Drop us in a comment or leave us a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And we'll see you again very soon.